Hi, I'm Ro Diamant, the creator of Dancing with the Sheyd, and you are listening to the True North Country Comics podcast.
Welcome to the True North Country Comics podcast, dedicated to celebrate Canadian comic book and graphic novel creators and supporters. I'm John Swinimer. On this episode, I chat with Ro Diamant about the graphic novel Dancing with the Sheyd from Inservice Comics. Ro Diamant is an artist and librarian who grew up in Winnipeg, Manitoba, but is now based in Victoria, British Columbia. With artwork inspired by fairy tales and folklore, monsters, and themes of identity, Ro's work is often personal, conveying memories and feelings. The first graphic novel by Ro is entitled Dancing with the Sheyd, published by Inservice Comics. Dancing with the Sheyd is described as part memoir, part folklore, part pop cultural parable. This beautifully hand-drawn graphic novel from Ro takes a reader on a journey through growing up Jewish in Winnipeg while being haunted by the ghosts of the past. So, without further ado, here's my chat with Ro Diamant about the graphic novel Dancing with the Sheyd from Inservice Comics. So, Ro Diamant, thank you very much for taking time to chat with me.
Thank you for having me on, John. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate your time. Before I get going with all the questions, I would like to know, what was the first comic book that you read?
I'm not 100% sure, but I would guess Archie Comics. I would stay with my dad on the weekends when I was growing up, and in his apartment there was a 7-Eleven downstairs. And so he'd give me some change and I'd run down and I'd pick up an Archie comic and a cherry blossom candy, which apparently doesn't exist anymore. And my dad didn't have a television, so I'd devour the Archie comic and I'd destroy them and read them in the bath and stuff. My dad would do wax carvings for jewelry and he'd kind of make sculptures for his work. And he had this giant, well, not giant, basically two wood tables kind of pushed together to form one giant table, and he'd sit on his side and do that, and I'd sit on my side and I'd recopy characters from Archie comics. And I guess I read the color comics in the newspaper as well. And my mom's boyfriend, when I was a kid, would give me paperbacks from his collection. So stuff like Mad Magazine, Peanuts, Wee Pals by Maury Turner, things like that.
Oh, well, lots of great stuff, absolutely, when you're growing up, but I'm wondering, who or what inspires you to create today?
A lot of other artists and art, cartoonists like Geneviève Castries, who wrote Susceptible, Tobias Tack, another cartoonist who passed away, but he was a dancer and a really beautiful, whimsical cartoonist. Dame Darcy kind of blew my mind. She wrote Meat Cake, and her comics were in this very dainty Victorian aesthetic with fine pen lines, but the characters were really grotesque and hilarious and unrestrained. And it was permission to just be really strange and just let everything out that I had in my mind. The work of Richard Sala has always really stayed with me. I also find inspiration in everyday life, people I've known, strangers, fairy tales, folklore, picture books, strange little objects at thrift shops, and on street corners. I collect way too many things, like trinkets and toys and miniature sculptures. I'm looking around me now, and the ledges of our apartment and my drawing studio area are just filled with little objects and art. And in the past couple of years, instead of taking them home or feeling bad when I couldn't from thrift shops or wherever, I started drawing them into little zines. And that's probably one of my favorite recent projects, this series of mini comics called Lonely Objects. And also don't think I have much of a choice anymore about creating. I just don't feel like myself, I guess, when I don't draw or create, even if I think it's terrible. And with the state of the world right now, seeing a lot of things that I feel helpless about, I think like a lot of other creators, making art feels like a way to kind of share or sometimes shout out how I feel and share grief and anger and hope. Yeah.
Yeah, art is a great outlet for many reasons, absolutely, and that's tremendous. And speaking of great art, we're talking about your latest graphic novel, Dancing with the Sheyd. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about it. What is this book all about?
Sure, yeah. So Dancing with the Sheyd is a coming of age story about my childhood in Winnipeg's Jewish community and growing disillusioned with Zionism and feeling alienated because of that and other reasons for many years, and then trying to reconnect with Judaism in my own queer way as an adult. I was born in Jerusalem, and my family has lived in Palestine since the early 1800s. Half my family still lives there, and it's always on my mind, and I just worry about things constantly. And so this book was my way of, it's kind of like a love letter to my family and filled with hope. And it's filled with Jewish folklore, funny personal stories, a lot of family mythologies. Like there's a small part about my great uncle Willie, who used to collect rent money from Ed Wood and Bela Lugosi. He was such a character. He was like a 24/7 vaudeville act. And the book has a lot of other family history, including a family mystery. There are some mischievous characters named Lilot that appeared right away to me in a comic page I drew spontaneously before making this book. And they appeared in a floating boat, naked with long braided hair and chicken feet. And in Jewish folklore, Lilot are the demon daughters of Lilith, Adam's first wife, who's also a character in my book. And they act like little magical guides, causing trouble, but also in their own sneaky way, helping the protagonist throughout the book.
Ah, okay. Well, what message do you want readers to take away from your book after reading it?
I hope it connects with people from a wide array of backgrounds, and I hope that it reaches younger anti-Zionist Jewish people or people who feel wary about Zionism and speaking out with criticism. But I also hope it reaches that all Jewish people and all people can connect with elements of the story. For anyone who has felt alienated from their communities or is struggling with their identity or health challenges, a good read for people who love folklore and wicked fairy tales, monster, and magic. I want to, through this comic, normalize critiquing many devastating Zionist mythologies I was raised with. Yeah, those are some of what I hope people will take away. And I hope it's funny too. I hope that people enjoy reading it. It's a weird book. I had a lot of trouble getting it published. There were a lot of people who complimented it and who told me it was unique, but that they didn't think it would have a wide enough audience to publish it, or they just didn't know what to do with it. And so I'm very grateful for Nick because like I've already gotten enough feedback from people on what it's meant to them or that they believe in it, that it's already been worth it for me to put it out there in some form.
And the Nick you're referring to is Nick Friesen from Inservice Comics. I presume based on your feedback and work with them thus far, you're pretty happy with working with them.
Oh, yeah. Nick is the best. He was actually one of the first people to read my manuscript. I sent it out to quite a few friends, and then I put out an open call to any cartoonists who wanted to exchange work in progress with me. And we read each other's work, and he gave me a lot of great feedback. We chatted at TCAF last year about how the difficulties in finding a publisher, a good publisher that we were happy with for our work. Yeah, and I was having a really tough time being ghosted or getting positive feedback, but positive rejections. And one day I just reached out to Nick and I was like, Nick, um totally okay if you don't think it's a good fit, but I was wondering how you'd feel about in-service publishing Dancing with the Sheyd. And he was just kind of like, I have been hoping you would reach out for a long time. Yes, I believe in this project. Yes. And so it just felt like kismet. Yeah.
That's great. I'd like to switch gears a wee bit and ask you to talk a bit about your creative process and perhaps what tools you use to create your book.
I use pen and pencil and ink, usually on 11 by 14 Bristol, but really all sorts of paper sizes for details that I piece together. It also has an old diary page that I drew over. I use a photo editing program for making the blacks more black and fixing the lettering, which was a very challenging process for me because I am naturally just abysmal at lettering. and I really, really worked hard to try and make the lettering as accessible for my hand lettering as I could. I used a script for the first time ever for this graphic novel. Before that, I drew spontaneously. I'd stay up late at night drawing after work. But I was really lucky in that I applied for my first art grant and I received it. And so it allowed me to work on this project full time for about 6 months. And I stretched that a little bit. I wouldn't have been able to make it and change the way I draw and take my time and really pace myself without that funding. So I'm very appreciative. It was through the Canada Council for the Arts, and I'm eternally grateful for that.
Great. Now, we met just very briefly at last year's Prairie Comics Festival. So I wanted to ask you what you liked most about that event.
Oh my gosh. It's one of the most supportive comics festivals that I've been to. It's small, but it's mighty, and everyone is very supportive of each other. And the organizers make sure that you know that they know who you are. They want you to succeed. It's very clear that comics are very beloved in that community. And it's also a great event for I traded so much stuff with other people around me, which is always like really great. And I guess the benefits of smaller fests is that you can have less rushed conversations and there's a little bit less stress. You maybe sell a little bit less, but you just have very meaningful conversations, which is a great alternative, in my opinion.
Yeah, yeah, it was a great event, absolutely. And another great event that you're going to be going to, I understand, is the Toronto Comic Arts Festival. And I wanted to ask you, what are you looking forward to most at that event?
Seeing friends I only get to see once a year, meeting people, having conversations one on one. I'm not great in super busy social situations, but I love having those one on one conversations and talking with people about art and life and how art helps them in life. And I had really meaningful conversations with people last year at TCAF. And the events, meeting the other in-service creators at the launch event should be great. That's at Net Plaza, where the Canada Comics Open Library is now. And I really miss Toronto. I miss how, there's a lot of unfortunate realities to being an artist living there that are difficult, but there's so much life everywhere and art everywhere. And I always leave the festival with just being inspired to dive back into creating or whatever project I'm working on.
We've been talking about Dancing with the Shade, but I got to ask you, what is the next project that you're working on that you can talk about?
I guess I'd have to go back a little bit. But before Dancing with the Shade, a project that kind of led into Dancing with the Shade was my Cute Nose series. This was a series of mini comics that I kind of playfully started making, which were inspired by a few things, in part by health struggles at the time, depression I was experiencing that wasn't uncontrolled at the time, dealing with complicated feelings about being Jewish. And I'd come home at the end of a long work day and I'd stay up way too late drawing. Yeah, comics have always helped me over the years, and it's been a good tool for me to express myself and figure out the world. And I think that's what I was doing through Cute Nose. And it was also inspired by clay miniatures I started making during the pandemic that I kind of playfully called golems after the 16th century Jewish folklore creature made of clay who was created by a rabbi to save the Jewish community in Prague from pogroms. And making these golems helped alleviate some anxiety at the time, and I haven't been able to stop playing with clay since then. And I started drawing these clay-like creatures into my comics, and it sort of opened a portal for me to begin drawing comics more regularly with less restrictions or self-doubt imposed on them. So that was Cute Nose, and that also led into Dancing with the Shade. But I have 3 issues of Cute Nose now, and my next project that I'd like to do is get them published as a collection and not self-publish them anymore. I'd like to try and find a publisher for that project. And also coming up, there's a larger project I applied for some grant funding for, but I can't really speak more to that right now. I'm actually also going through an intensive application process to enter a business program locally through Work BC in a college on the mainland with the aim to open up a local DIY art space in Victoria with zines and independently made art. I'm calling it Inkies for now. And for that project, I also want to grow the small press and self-published sections of Lost Doll, my web shop and distro. So lots of hope and dreams in the works. I always share on Instagram, maybe overshare, so I'll keep everyone updated there.
Yeah, lots of great stuff on the go. And you mentioned Instagram. Is that probably the best place where people can find about your current and your future work?
Yeah, so people can find me online on Instagram, just my full name, Rotem Anna Diamant, ROTEMANNA DIAMANT. And my website is rotemannadiamant.com, same spelling. I'm also on Blue Sky, but I haven't the heart to use it regularly yet. Also, if anyone wants to check out those clay creature, golem creatures I mentioned, I have a Tumblr as well that I regularly post clay that I make on called tiny-golems. And I also do have a Patreon, but I'm not super active on it. It's kind of just like if people want to buy me a coffee from time to time. But Instagram's probably the place that I'm on far too often.
Very good. Well, Ro, those are all the questions I have for you, but I'm wondering, is there something I didn't ask that you'd like to get across in this interview?
I really want to thank you for doing these interviews and supporting Canadian cartoonists. And it's really meaningful, the work that you do. And I guess I want to express that I'm really open to having difficult conversations with people about my book, about the topics surrounding my book. I can speak to my own experiences. I don't want Zionism to be this topic that people feel fearful to speak about because it's such an emotional topic for Jewish people and for so many people. And anti Zionism is often associated with anti Semitism. And I hope that this graphic novel and my own personal story and experiences can help dispel that. And I'm open to speaking with people who have different perspectives than my own. Yeah, I guess I just wanted to mention that. Thank you again so much.
Thanks to Ro for the chat. You can discover more about Ro Diamant online at rotemannadiamant.com and on Instagram at rotemannadiamant. You can discover more about Dancing with the Sheyd at Inservice Comics. And thank you for tuning in to the True North Country Comics podcast. I invite you to visit the True North Country Comics website to listen to even more conversations with creators about making comic books and graphic novels. You can follow along True North Country Comics on most social media platforms, and you're encouraged to send any and all feedback to John at truenorthcountrycomics.com. Thanks for tuning in, and come back soon for another episode. Bye for now. True North Country Comics Podcast is copyright True North Country Comics, copyright 2026.